going to give you this analogy. And it's kind of like, I feel like AI is kind of like a box cake mix. A box cake mix is a great starter so that you don't have to put the entire cake together from scratch. Now, some might argue that making a cake from scratch is probably better in some cases, but a box cake will certainly save you time if you start with that. But here's the thing. The box cake still needs eggs, still needs oil, still needs water added to it. And if you don't do that, and you don't do that in the right or correct amounts or the process, what you get is not going to be as you would expect. And it's not going to be at the level of quality that you want. Hey everybody, welcome to Finding the Upside. I have a shorty episode for you today, and today we are talking about AI. You know, in looking towards the future with AI, there is no doubt that it is here to stay. And no matter who you are, whether you work in a company, whether you own a business, you have heard about AI by now. Most of us have tried it by now as well. I've been thinking a lot about what's been around, the talk in the news, on social media, and all the buzz about work and how AI will impact the workforce and how it will impact business. I mean, there's no doubt that it's taken hold in all places very quickly. One example, of course, ChatGPT only came out in December, and all of a sudden, there is all these new generations and iterations of AI. But just like anything, this is just another spike of change. And with that, innovation. Another piece of innovation, and the masses, society, in all those places will find a way to adjust and adapt. But here's the really critical part. Only if we embrace it. Now, there certainly can be things that it can change. Let's be honest. It can and has the potential to devalue some job roles, some positions, some freelancing work, copywriting, social media, editors, things like that. But I do believe that creativity will be elevated in terms of value. So that's the upside. But I've got to tell you that I'm being fully transparent here about what we are doing with it at my company. Let me state this very clearly. We've embraced it. We've started to use it. Do we use it for everything? No, because we've actually proven that it's not good for everything. It does need a human touch. And there's a lot of fear that's being placed on what it's going to do to certain things. But I don't think that that's the right perspective. I myself, as a business owner, have said to my team, we're going to experiment with it. We're going to see what it's good for, and we're going to see what it's not good for. And we're going to embrace it. And we're going to find ways to have AI help us. Not to replace what we do, but to help us. So I'm going to give you this analogy. And it's kind of like, I feel like AI is kind of like a box cake mix. A box cake mix is a great starter so that you don't have to put the entire cake together from scratch. Now, some might argue that making a cake from scratch is probably better in some cases, but a box cake will certainly save you time if you start with that. But here's the thing. The box cake still needs eggs, still needs oil, still needs water added to it, and if you don't do that, and you don't do that in the right or correct amounts or the process, what you get is not going to be as you would expect. And it's not going to be at the level of quality that you want or what was intended. It's not going to taste as good. Well, it's the same thing with AI for sure. The other thing that we've learned here is that bad input gives you bad output. And good input and better direction gives you better output and better results. So you've got to teach it. You've got to give it a prompt. You've got to tweak it. You've got to correct it. You've got to redirect it if it gives you the wrong thing that's not matching what you're looking for. And there's all different ways that we've found to do that. And then at the end of the day, you've got to edit what it produces yourself to really make it fit what you want it to be. Now, there are times that we've proven that it's just not going to suit us. So we've got to sometimes make things from scratch, write things from scratch, create things from scratch. But we've also tried it and used it for creating social media content, writing captions, writing process or SOPs, writing how-tos. One of the things we've definitely verified is that you need to verify everything that it gives you. I've even used it to write an itinerary for a trip that I was taking. And I have to say, it did a pretty good job, but you have to check it. You're not going to rely completely on the results it gives you. You have to verify. One of the other things that I've thought about in this whole consideration with AI, and I think it's important to consider, is education. And education has to figure out what it's going to do about this. I think it's a misstep here to not embrace it as well, to not embrace technology completely. And I think so far in education, they've made a big mistake with technology. Now, I'm not going to say totally in all places and all levels of education. Like at the college level, I'll talk about that in a minute. I think they've started to do that and embrace it and figure out what they're doing with technology and innovation. But in my experience, I think that overall there's been a big mistake in education at the like K through 12 level, where in many districts all over the United States, they've embraced technology like giving kids laptops. But then all the focus is, and all their intentions are, how are we going to make sure that the students aren't cheating, aren't using that technology to cheat? And I think that that's very misdirected because all of that effort is a waste. Instead, what I think they should have done is, if you're going to give somebody the technology, then how about figure out different ways to teach with it and different ways to assess mastery of the information. Yeah, you're not going to be able to just give the students a multiple choice test anymore and see if people retain it. And here's why. Because then you have to focus all of your attention on making sure that they're not cheating and looking up the answers. But I think that that was really a big misstep in education when they rolled that out in the places that they have. I know there's some districts that haven't, but in the places that they have, I think that's a misstep. So how about let's find different ways to figure out and understand whether people have mastered information. I mean, let's face it, in the business world and in life, we all Google to find information. Am I right? But just like that, you have to be careful to ensure that what you get is accurate. You have to double check. You have to do the research. You have to mine through and critically think, what is it that you're being given? The same goes for, in any case, the information that AI is giving us. It's the same. But what I've seen in higher education at the college level is where more and more professors are embracing the fact that AI is here and that technology is here. And I think it will play out itself. I think it will play itself out in terms of how they detect if someone's using AI to write a paper, for example. They already use some tools that detect plagiarism and also detect AI-generated writing. And sometimes that's not perfect, so there also needs to be caution used with that as well. And, obviously, intellectual or academic integrity is an important point here for any student to have. And that is definitely emphasized at the universities. But just like a box cake mix, if we can find ways to let it help us along, if we can find ways to let it get us started with ideas, starters, paraphrasing, prompts, paraphrasing tools, all kinds of things like that. I think that's something that's going to have to be flushed out. And I have seen professors at the college level start to allow open book tests for that reason. I think they acknowledge the importance of academic integrity, but realize that the information is there. And the thing is, again, changing the way that we assess students, changing how we understand whether they have that mastery of information, means, again, abandoning the multiple choice type of test. Maybe it's some way of showing application of the information, a different way of doing that, whether that's through essay questions, whether that's through logic and reasoning in the questioning. And I think that that's an important takeaway to consider. So, education and in business, embracing technology is the only way forward. And if you work at a company that's avoiding it or judging it, I think a better way is to consider how do you use it and to do that with some guardrails. I mean, I tell my staff, I don't want you to use ChatGPT or some other AI tool to do the entire process for you. I want you to use it like a box cake mix. I don't want AI to design the entire social media post, but I want you to use it like you would a box cake mix to start baking the cake. Use it to start you out, to help you out, and then use human goodness, human intellect to tweak it and to get it to that point of perfection. Well, that's all on this topic in this shorty episode of Finding the Upside. I hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the next episode of Finding the Upside. Bye for now.